You'd think a porch swing and a quiet cup of coffee wouldn't be controversial. But if you've ever dealt with an HOA drunk on power, you know even breathing in the wrong direction can be a federal offense in their eyes. My story begins on the edge of sleepy lakeside town, where my family's old cabin sat nestled into a wooded slope, humble, hand-built by my grandfather, and about as non-threatening as a squirrel on a fence. I inherited it after my father passed. It wasn't much, a wraparound porch, a stone chimney, a few creaky floors, but it was mine. I visited every summer to reset. No phone, no internet, just trees, birds, and the sound of dock planks warming in the sun. Then the development came. A high-end resort-style community started construction across the gravel road. Think golf carts, beige polos, pastel welcome flags, and a clubhouse that cost more than my entire education. They built fast. Cabins turned to condos, fire pits to fountains. Within 2 years, the once quiet slope was now humming with pool parties and golf course gossip. I didn't mind. I kept to myself, until they told me I couldn't sit on my own porch. It started with a visit from a man named Doug. Doug wore boat shoes and a permanently furrowed brow. He introduced himself as the HOA president and immediately handed me a glossy pamphlet titled Rustic Aesthetic Guidelines. "You're technically within the buffer zone of our HOA," he said, like he was reading from a script. "We'd appreciate it if you could limit porch activity, rocking chairs, flags, wind chimes, things that disrupt the uniform lakeside vibe." I blinked. "I'm sorry, buffer zone." He nodded. "It's part of the shared experience we're cultivating. You'll still have full access to your porch, of course. We just ask that you not be visibly present during peak visitor hours. It creates confusion about ownership." Let me pause here to say this. I have a high tolerance for nonsense. But telling a man not to exist visibly on his own porch, that's a different level of HOA delusion. I told Doug politely, but firmly, to leave. A week later, I returned from a grocery run to find a bright orange notice of non-compliance stapled to my door. It claimed I had violated HOA policy #47, non-member presence within community view lines. I laughed, and then I noticed something else. The community had expanded a little too far, right onto my land. The new luxury pool, complete with palm-shaped water features and faux stone decking, had been built partially on the far edge of my property. Not just the chairs or the shade umbrellas. The pool itself, the water, the plumbing. I pulled out the survey maps. Yep, roughly 20% of their precious pool sat smack on my land. A piece of land they apparently assumed belonged to the developer because it had been overgrown for decades. But I kept it, paid taxes on it, and never sold. And now they were telling me I was the intruder? Game on. I contacted a property lawyer named Ann. She was sharp, sarcastic, and had dealt with more HOA cases than any sane person should. She reviewed my documents, cross-referenced county records, and confirmed everything I already knew. "They built an $800,000 luxury pool partially on your land," she said, sipping coffee. "Without easement, lease, or permission. That's not just bold. That's legally suicidal." She smiled. "You want to go nuclear?" "I want to do it calmly," I said. "I want the paperwork to hit harder than a bulldozer. We got to work." First, we drafted a cease and desist letter, complete with high-res drone footage of the encroachment. Then we contacted the county assessor to flag the parcel. Next came the environmental inspection. We noticed unpermitted changes to the tree line and unnatural water runoff from their infinity edge. The HOA board lost its mind. Doug returned, visibly sweating, asking if we could talk it out neighbor to neighbor. I smiled. "You mean like when you asked me to disappear from my porch?" He mumbled something about misunderstandings. I gave him 2 options. Pay me fair market lease value for the land beneath their pool, plus back payment for the previous 12 months. Or drain it, demolish it, and return my slope to the wooded, tree-rooted mess it had been. They thought I was bluffing, so I filed the injunction. The next month was a PR nightmare for them. Residents were outraged. The pool closed indefinitely. Real estate agents pulled listings. Their precious community vibe had a crater where a waterfall used to be. At one emergency board meeting, Karen finally appeared. Yes, that Karen. Every HOA has one. She accused me of weaponizing land, said I was holding the community hostage, claimed my grandfather would be ashamed. So I did what I should have done from the beginning. I hosted a public open house on the porch they tried to ban me from. I invited neighbors, old friends, and yes, reporters. I served lemonade, shared copies of the survey, and projected their fake non-compliance notice onto a sheet like it was movie night. The headline, the next morning, cabin owner shuts down $800,000 pool with one piece of paper. The HOA caved. They paid the lease fees, signed a 10-year agreement, and publicly apologized for misinterpreting property lines. Doug resigned. Karen stopped showing up to meetings. And me? I still sit on that porch every morning, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with tea, always with the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when they tried to erase me, they did it on my land. Because the thing about porches is they're built to face the world, but they're anchored deep in something stronger. And this one was never theirs to claim.